Okay. Jake, what's 21 divided by 7? What's 8 to the 5th over 8 to the 1? And b to the 3rd over b to the 1. Okay. Landon, 14 over 7. Okay. A to the 3rd over a to the 1.
B squared.
And b squared over b to the 1.
B.
Andrew, 63 divided by 7.
9.
A squared over a to the 1.
Just A.
And then b over b. B to the 1 over b to the 1.
There's nothing.
Cancels out. How many of you guys got that for your answer? Okay. Do you guys remember that in all seriousness? Easy, just dividing one thing, blah, blah, blah. Okay. The next thing that we're going to go to is going to be really what you should have done on Friday. Use factoring to divide the polynomials below. Now, if you would like to, you can get out your factoring guide. I did reference that multiple times through that video. So when we're dividing, you're really not dividing. You're just factoring, which kind of like we're like on repeat there because we've been factoring forever. Okay, look at the top. You have to factor top and bottom separately. Up at the top, that's just a trinomial, 3 terms. Do I have a greatest common factor up there, w squared? No. So if you had your factoring guide out, you could see, well, a trinomial just breaks up into 2 binomials. Class, what am I going to put in my first spot, here and here? W, because w times w gets you w squared. Mystery numbers have to multiply to be 10 and add to be -7. Okay. -2 and a -5. If I look at the denominator, can I factor the denominator? Is that, I see 2 terms. Okay, I see 2 terms. I'm going to have to move you in like 1 second because I can't do this all day. It was the same thing last week. It's just nonstop. It's too much for me. Okay, down at the bottom, I see 2 terms. There's no greatest common factor. If you had your factoring guide out, 2 terms would either be, well, it's difference of squares or difference of cubes. That's neither. You can't factor that, so you're just going to bring it over. You've got a matching pair. W minus 5 at the bottom, W minus 5 at the top. We cross out the matching pairs. Whatever is left is your answer. W minus 2. That's the answer. Okay? Let's take a look at number 4. Okay? When I go to number 4, it's a dividing problem, but instead of them writing it top to bottom, they just wrote it left to right. Okay, if you look at the trinomial, does that have a greatest common factor? Okay, so you just have to factor it. Trinomials break up into 2 binomials. What should I put in the first space? 4H. What do your mystery numbers need to multiply to be? If only you had a factoring guide. First times the last. 4 times -2. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to be a -8 and add up to be -7. This is all review, all stuff we've already done. So, Zori, what could multiply to -8 and add to -7? Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry, what is it? -1 and 8. Now that does multiply to -8, but that adds to 7. Switch the signs. How about 1 and -8? That'll do it. So we'll make it a +1 and a -8. Now remember, with this type of factoring, you have that one other step. That's to look for that common factor. With a 4 and a 1, nothing can go into that. So we just keep 4H plus 1. With a 4 and an 8, 4 can go into that. So we divide that by 4. I get H minus 2. Now, that's all factored. I have to bring this part back to the problem because technically what I'm doing is divided by H minus 2. So now I'm going to say divided by h minus 2. Cross off your matching pairs. Whatever's left is your answer, 4h plus 1. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a little hint that I said in the video. I said it in the other classes today. When you do these problems, like 99.99999% of the time, you're going to be able to cross something out. So you can kind of use that to your advantage when you factor. Like over here, since my bottom was w minus 5, I know when I go to factor the top, one of them had to be w minus 5 for it to cross out. Over here, technically the denominator would have been h minus 2. One of those has to be h minus 2. It's going to almost always work out like that. Okay? So number 3 and 4 were just trinomials. Look at 5 and 6. When you look at number 5, I see this is not a trinomial. That's something that has 4 terms. How do we factor something with 4 terms?
Make a trinomial.
No. What is it? Groups. You make 2 groups. So we've got to split this up into our 2 groups. I'm going to have x cubed plus 9x squared plus negative 4x minus 36. And I'll just keep my divided by x plus 9. Remember, we always connect our 2 groups with a plus sign. So you see that's why I'm doing a plus there. I'm just sliding that negative 4x into the second group. So after our 2 groups, what comes next? Thank you. We need a GCF of each group. So looking at my first group, Kelsey, do you think you know what the GCF of that would be? X cubed plus 9x squared? X squared, good. So we take out an x squared, divide by x squared, divide by x squared. You get x plus 9. Okay, I'll bring down that plus sign. Looking at the second group, I need a GCF there. Kennedy, do you think you know what it would be? Good, but guess what? Remember, if the front term is negative, let's take out a negative. So I'm going to take out a negative 4 over there. Divide by negative 4. So I get positive x plus 9. Guys, if you remember, when we were doing all of this factor by grouping, a way you can tell if you did it right is those binomials in the middle have to be the same. Okay, so now I'm going to put together my final answer. I'm going to have my greatest common factors and my common binomial. So my x squared and my negative 4, that's right here. That's the 2 greatest common factors. The x plus 9, that was your common binomial. That goes over here. Now, this really was a division problem at the beginning. So I've got to kind of go back in now and grab that into the problem. It's divided by x plus 9. So I'm going to send that down to the bottom. And it cancels out. Remember, I told you it's going to cancel. Something has to go away. So what I'm left with is x squared minus 4. Does anybody notice anything about x squared minus 4? Yes, to what?
You just square it.
That right there is a difference of squares. So we could simplify it. Difference of squares breaks up into 2 binomials. Square root the first term, square root the second term. Signs are different. So in this case, my final answer is x minus 2, x plus 2, or if you put the plus first and then the minus. This was from Friday. This is what we should have done, problems like this on Friday, factoring with the ways that we did on the brochure, the ways that we did when we took the last summative, that type of a thing. I want you guys to try number 6 for me, and we'll talk about that. That's also factoring with 4 terms. So take a moment and try that. If you want to pull out, you see 4 terms, there's no greatest common factor. That means you have to make your 2 groups. Always connect those groups with a plus sign. We're GCF in each group. So GCF in the first group would be n squared. We'd get 2n plus 3. GCF in the second group, I know it starts with a negative, so I got to take out a negative. It's going to be a negative 8. Divide both by negative 8. I get positive 2n plus 3. I know I'm on the right track because these came out to be the same. Group your greatest common factors. Group your common binomial. And now I'm going to go ahead and get the division problem. It was divided by 2n plus 3. So I put that underneath. Cross off those matching pairs. I get n squared minus 8. N squared minus 8, we can't go anywhere with that. That's not a difference of squares. 8 doesn't have a perfect square. That's not a difference of cubes because it's n squared, not n to the third. Okay. So that's all kind of review. Let's talk about something new, shall we? Not every polynomial can be factored. And so it says, when factoring is not possible. By the way, none of these would be factorable. I mean, you could group this into 4 terms if you wanted to, and I'm just going to show you this really quick. If I pulled in r squared out of these first 2, I'd get r minus 4. If I made this a group, my only GCF would be negative 1. I'd get 26r plus 15. These are not the same. You can't factor that like 4 terms factor by grouping. So in some of these problems, you guys, you're not able to factor it. That's why you have to do long division. So this is the new stuff for today. You've never seen this in Algebra 1. Please take good notes right now. Okay, this right here, r plus 3, is the divisor. This is the dividend. Going old school on your vocab. We're going to set it up to look like this. R plus 3, and then on the inside, r cubed minus 4r squared minus 26r minus 15. Give yourself room. Guys, these problems, there is a lot of steps going on here. That's why they call it long division. So here's how we're going to start this off. We're going to start with the divide part. Very much like how earlier I said 4 goes into 27 how many times? Here's the way my thought process is going to be on this. I'm going to start with the r on the outside, and I need to think in my mind, r times what would get me r to the third? This r times what results in r to the third? R squared. Remember, guys, when you multiply, we add those exponents. So r times r squared. Put in r squared on the second term. So we're not starting here. We're starting over here. Okay, that was my divide part. Now I multiply. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to do r squared, because you always go to the next one with long, like I just showed that for. So now we're going to go r squared times r. What's r squared times r? R to the third. And then you've got to do r squared times 3. That's 3r squared. So whatever you put up here, you have to multiply to everything here. After we multiply, the next step says subtract. I need you to make sure when you're doing your subtraction, you're going to do it like this. You're subtracting all of that. So we got to really watch our signs. R cubed minus r cubed cancels out. That should happen every time you go to do subtraction. The first piece of it has to go away. So that's gone. Now this is saying negative 4r squared minus 3r squared. Negative 4, take away 3. That gives me negative 7r squared. So I subtracted. Now I'm going to bring down. Bring down your next term. Minus 26. Now I'm repeating. I got to divide again.
I'm sorry, how did you get negative 7 squared?
Negative 4 minus 3. So if I wrote it out like this, negative 4r squared minus 3r squared, that's negative 7r squared. Okay? Okay, so now we're back to repeating. I'm still starting with the r out here, but now I'm thinking, okay, r let me go with this other color. R times what is going to get you negative 7r squared? That's what I got to think about. R times what? Because I need that to cancel out. R times what would get me negative 7r squared?
26 has a bar.
The 26 what?
7 was down
Oh, thank you. Okay, there we go. So let me add that here. Perfect. I appreciate that. Okay. Do you guys, anybody know this? R times what is 7? Negative 7r squared? Negative 7r. So that's what's going to go up at the top. Negative 7r. Okay. Now we multiply. So negative 7r times r is negative 7r squared. Negative 7r times 3 is negative 21r. After we multiply, the next step is to subtract. But you've got to be sure you're going to do a minus and put that all in parentheses. Because what we have happening right here, you guys, is like in this first part, this right here is negative 7r squared minus negative 7r squared. What happens with minus and negative? It goes to plus. So technically, right here, that's negative 7r squared plus 7r squared. That's going to cancel out. The same kind of thing will happen here. This is negative 26r minus negative. Switch that to a plus. So we're really looking at negative 26r plus 21r. That'll give me negative 5r. So after I subtract, now we bring down. Last thing I have to bring down is that negative 15. We repeat that cycle one more time. That's my last thing to bring down, so I know I'm almost there. I've got an r on the outside. I got to think about r. I'm going to write it right here. R times what would get me negative 5r? Negative 5. R times negative 5 is negative 5r. So up at the top, I'm going to put in a negative 5. And now we multiply. Negative 5 times r, that's my negative 5r. Negative 5 times 3, that's negative 15. I subtract, I use parentheses. What do you guys think is going to happen there? It's all going to cancel out, yeah. Because it's a minus, so negative 5r minus negative 5, that cancels. Negative 15 minus negative 15 turns to plus. You get 0. When you get 0, it just means you have no remainder. And so your answer is all the stuff up at the top. R squared minus 7r minus 5. This is my answer to the question. This is long division. Okay. We're going to try another one together. This is new. You did not do this in Algebra 1. This is why I'm saying it's like really important to take notes, to follow along, because it's all brand new. Okay, questions. Anything before we take a look at another one? Well, let's look at number 8. Now, number 8, I'm just going to tell you, is going to have a remainder. So they don't always have no remainder. Like on my little generic example on the whiteboard of just numbers, right? You can get remainders. Okay, so let's take a look. Remember, we're doing long division because not everything could be factored. So let's set it up in the long division outline way. I'm going to have k minus 1 inside k cubed minus 8k squared minus 3k plus 18. All right, starting out. I'm looking at the k, and I'm looking at k cubed. The thought in my brain is k times what gets you k to the third? k squared. That's right. That's what's going to go on top above the negative 8k squared. So over here, I'm going to put k squared. Now I do the multiplication. So I'm going to do k squared times k. That's k to the third. I'm going to do k squared times negative 1. So I'm going to say minus 1k squared. I'm going to put the 1 in front of it. You'll see we have to subtract next. So after you multiply, now you subtract. Remember, I'm using that set of parentheses so I don't mix up my signs. So k to the third minus k to the third cancels out. Good, we want that to happen. That first term has to go away. Okay, negative 8k squared minus negative. Remember, minus negative, we switch that to plus. So what's negative 8 plus 1? Negative 7k squared. Okay. After I subtract, my next step is bring down. We're going to bring down the next term, which is my negative 3k. Now I go back. We're repeating. You've got k on the outside. We're thinking k times what could get you negative 7k squared. And you could write this out off to the side if you wanted to. Right now I'm thinking k times what gets me negative 7k squared.
Negative 7k?
Yes, negative 7k. That's what's going to go up on top next. Negative 7k. So now we did the divide. Now I'm multiply. So negative 7k times k. That's going to be negative 7k squared. Negative 7k times negative 1. Watch your signs. Negative times a negative, that'll be positive 7k. We're subtracting all of that. Again, watch those signs. Minus and negative, that switches to plus. So it's a negative 7k squared plus 7k squared. That goes away. Negative 3k minus 7k. It'll be negative 10k. Negative 3 minus 7. Andrew, try to take some notes. This is really crazy. That's negative 10k. So after we subtract, the next step that I do is I bring down. I've got one more term to bring down. That's my 18. This will be my last step. I've got that k on the outside. I'm thinking k times what could get me negative 10k. Yes, that's the last thing to put up at the top. Well, almost the last thing. Negative 10. Now I multiply. I'm going to do negative 10 times k. That's negative 10k. We've got negative 10 times negative 1. Negative times a negative, that's going to be positive 10. Subtract with parentheses. Minus negative switches to plus. Negative 10k plus 10k.
I think 18 is supposed to be an 8.
Oh my God. I'm really slipping today. You're right. Thank you. Okay, so now it's 8 minus 10. That's negative 2. Is there anything else for me to bring down? No. Guess what? That is a remainder. But instead of like when you were little and you had a remainder like here, you know where that 3 is the remainder? When we were young and we did this in elementary school, we would just come up here and do a big capital R and say 3. You remember when you did that? Okay, now you're a little more sophisticated. You're a little more mature. We're not going to do that anymore. Now, we're going to take that remainder, that negative 2, we're going to put it up to the top, but it's going to look like this. It's going to be minus 2 over whatever your divisor was, this. So 2 over k minus 1. That's going to be my final answer. I've got to write it like that. So you write that remainder like a fraction. Okay? Yeah. So it is called long division. Yeah, it's many steps. There's no denying that. What I want you to do is I want you to try to start number 9. We're going to set it up. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes. You can work with the person that you're sitting beside. See if you think you can kind of begin this journey. And I say journey because it kind of is a journey you're on. It does take several steps to get through. 6n cubed. Give yourself the space. Okay. So go ahead and start that. All right, so starting off, I need to think about n times what gets you 6n cubed? Jake? Yeah, that's what I want to know. N times what? N times what gets you 6n to the third? 6n squared. That's what I'm starting with over here. Okay, one more time. So if you're a little shaky on it, here you go. We multiply now. 6n squared times n is 6n cubed. 6n squared times negative 5 is negative 30n squared. After I multiply, I subtract. Use parentheses. 6n cubed minus 6n cubed cancels out. Good. You need that to happen every time. Over here, negative 20n squared minus negative 30. Caution. Minus negative means you're switching to plus. So it's negative 20 plus 30. That's going to be 10n squared. Bring down minus 42n. After we bring down, we're repeating that cycle of division. So now, on the outside, you've got your n. You're thinking n times what could get you 10n squared? Somebody, anybody.
Oh, I know.
10n, yes, thank you. 10n. So up at the top, I'm going to do plus 10n. Now we multiply. 10n times n is 10n squared. 10n times negative 5 is negative 50n. You're subtracting using parentheses. Okay. 10n squared minus 10n squared cancels out. Good, we want that. Negative 42n minus negative. Caution with that sign. Minus negative switches to plus. So negative 42 plus 50 gives me 8n. Bring down minus 47. Back to the outside now. N times what gets you 8n? Yes, 8. So up here, I'm going to do a plus 8. Multiply. 8 times n is 8n. 8 times negative 5 is negative 40. Subtract with parentheses. 8n minus 8n goes away. Negative 47 minus negative. There it is again. Almost all of these problems minus negative. It switches to plus. So negative 47 plus 40 is negative 7. That's your remainder. But you're not just going to go up to the top and do that big capital R negative 7. We have to write it like a fraction. So heading back to the top, I'm going to say minus 7 over n minus 5. That's going to be my answer. Did anybody get that or part of that or any little bit of it? Okay, I got to tell you one other thing.